This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions, coming to you about the economy. Came across this fantastic article. Half of Americans are effectively poor now now what? It was a fascinating title. I'm not even sure if the site is, but I stumbled across it. It's always want to put good information out there, and just to show you where we're at in this kind of time and why things can't be done the same way. I'm going to dive right in. As always, I'm going to put the link inside the description. America's collapsing because it's the world's first poor rich country. Here's a picture of a typical American family that I guess they had in the past. There are days I feel like I read dystopian statistics for a living, and then there are days when the dystopian statistics take even my jaded breath away. Here's one: 43% of American households can't afford a budget that includes housing, food, childcare, healthcare, transportation, and a cell phone. Translation: nearly half Americans can't afford the basics of life anymore. Does that take your breath away too? It should, and yet it might not come as a surprise. You might know it intimately. The statistics say there's an even chance you're living it. What a grim and bizarre reality. Half of people are effectively poor in the world's first richest country. What the? The folks that did the study above call this new class of people ALICE, for asset limit, income constrained, employed. It's a sharp way to think about American collapse. Let me translate this term too. The people formerly known as the American middle class. Let's take each of these terms one by one. Asset limited means that these households don't have the resources, the hard financial assets to draw down on anymore. That tallies out with other research which says the majority of Americans now have a negative net worth. In short, asset limited is a polite way of saying indebted for life, with no real way of ever not getting out of the trap. It's a nice way of saying broke. Why not? That brings me to the second item in the term. Income constrained. American incomes haven't risen for half a century, but the cost of living has exploded, skyrocketed, gone supernova. Healthcare and education didn't cost as much as a house in the 1970s or even the 1980s, and the houses didn't cost more than the average person would ever make in their lifetime. If asset limit is a polite way of saying broken and indebted, income strain is a polite way of saying poor. There are two basic kinds of financial poverty, after all: not having much of an income and not having any wealth saved up. Americans are poor in both ways now. That's because their incomes haven't risen to allow them to save, and their debts keep mounting, which eats up their meager incomes. Hence, another shocking stat: most Americans now die in debt. What the I always just repeating that. I like when he puts that exclamation point there. Not exclamation, question mark there, but you get the time. You get the gist of what he's saying. Is this the 1300s? What do we call a population that lived in debt and in debt? We certainly don't call them free in any real sense. They're the modern equivalent of serfs or peasants who are born owning and who are born owing and who will die owing a fictional, unplayable amount. Americans are something very much like neo-serfs because of the last idea in the phrase Alice employed. You see, it's not as if the average American is poor now because he or she is sitting around playing video games all day. Quite the contrary. Americans are notoriously hardworking people, and that trend continues right down to this day. Americans hold several jobs. The side hustles become an everyday feature of life. Americans aren't poor because they don't work hard enough, or they don't work long enough. They're poor even if they do. In that sense, the final idea in the phrase Alice is underwhelming and inadequate. It fails to really get to the root of the problem here. If the majority of people in rich society are poor people now, even now they're employed, then clearly the problem isn't the people, is the system. Now you might object, are Americans really becoming poor? What else would you call people that struggle to afford food, housing, childcare, and healthcare? You can't call them rich, and you can't call them middle class. They are poor in the sense they are deprived of the basics of life, and deprivation is what poverty is. Even far poor countries, I wager, don't have such dire outcomes. Bigger percentages can't afford the basics because medicine or rent or childcare in Pakistan or Nigeria doesn't cost so relatively much. Americans are indeed growing effectively poorer and poorer now, and it shows in their depression, stress, anger, rage, anxiety, falling longevity and health, not to mention classic turn towards authoritarianism. Poverty in America, in other words, has become endemic. and ubiquitous because it's systemic and structural. It's baked into the system. It's a feature, not a bug. And most Americans these days, I wager, understand this intuitively. Work hard, play by the rules, become someone worthy. Be a teacher, engineer, writer, coach, therapist, nurse, etc. What do you get? You get a pension rated, read stolen. I guess he clicks to an article, and I talked so extensively about pensions here, by your hedge funds, and you get your income decimated by investment bankers. You get charged a fortune for the very things you yourself are involved in producing, but never earn a fair share of you. You get preyed on in every which way the predatory can dream up. But it's a new kind of poverty too, or at least one unseen since the Weimar Republic. Really, it's a poverty of decline, degeneration, decay. It's a poverty of a middle class becoming a new poor. It's a reversal of an upward trajectory, not the failure to launch. It's people who expected to live better and better lives finding themselves in the grim, unfamiliar predicament of never being able to reach them, no matter what they do, except maybe sell out and become one of the predators. What happens when this takes place? Something strange, something difficult, something paradoxical and backwards. If I had to say to the average American, hey, I know you're poor. Listen, I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to help you. I know. The statistics tell me so. So I can see it in your stressed out, depressed face. I can see it in everything about you now. What will the average American say? Well, he or she will respond defensively. Probably. He'll go, hey, go to hell, buddy. I'm not poor. That's understandable. I'm not doing a really good justice of reading all the explanation. I'm encourage you to read this article because I'm putting the link inside the description. Nobody likes to be called poor, and especially not Americans, because living in hyper-capitalist society, poverty is stigmatized, scorned, mocked, and hated. To call an American poor is something like calling a Soviet a bad Communist Party member, or maybe even a capitalist a comrade to the gulag with you. I get it, but it's not helping anyone to pretend Americans are now rich when in fact they are poor. The difficult truths are these. The majority of Americans, or near enough, are effectively poor now. America is the world's poor rich country, and no progress whatsoever can be made until enough of them are willing to admit it. Think about it. If Americans go on playing the strange and silly game of pretending to be rich when they're poor, then what reason is there to address any of the obvious and fatal failures of the hard American life anymore? If you're rich and fortunate, why do you need public health care, child care, retirement? And yet without those things, Americans will only ever get poor. There's a place where pride becomes hubris, where stoicism becomes vanity, where self-reliance becomes ignorance of the common good. Americans are at the place right now, in this moment. American poverty, a middle class falling into ruin, the majority of people are now effectively poor, is what gave rise to today's problems. Trumpism, extremism, fascism, theocracy, it's what drives religious fervor. Save me, someone. It will ignite a spark of racial hatred all over again. And unless this problem is addressed, my friends, in a tough and gentle and sane way, America is going to stay where it is. People that really understand political economy have it saying, capitalism implodes into fascism. That's because it produces mass poverty, not riches, decline, not upward mobility, and the new poor then turn on everyone, neighbors, friends, allies, values, morals. If that sounds eerily like America today, then you should be able to see America tomorrow too. Someone needs to say it, and it needs to be said with gentle understanding, real empathy, uncompromising truth, and genuine compassion. America is effectively a poor country now. Not a poor country like poor countries, but a poor country of its own kind. A poor rich country. A rich country where the average person lives like a poor person. That single fact is at the heart of American collapse, my friend, and it's not okay. Ymir, May 2019. This article was about a month old. It's packed in with just philosophy and real truths. I encourage you to take a look at this. Think about things differently. Doing this, that's what this whole channel is about. The old way of doing things does not make any sense anymore. Until my next video, if this video has been any value to you, please subscribe, leave some comments, and I'm out.